the kid was a dick. I mean, he really smart, eloquent, had his argument together, had obviously debated Scott before, and he was really being a dick. I mean, it was shut up, go out and get some light.
It's not a dick to try to force a critical question and try to force the conversation to where the American people want it. Geraldo, you were there when Scott made fun of my bedtime 5 minutes earlier. Again, this is somebody not bound by any rules whatsoever on this show. He's able to lie over and over. Why should I be bound by some decorum that my opponents aren't bound by? Do you see what I'm saying? It's not the 80s anymore. It's not even 2010 anymore. We are in a new era where we are playing in a reciprocal manner. You have a whole life of experience, and you're on the same panels as me. We're on the same shows. We have a show last week. We have a show today. So life experience, what has it gotten you? I don't know.
All right, everybody, pull up a chair, because this one got messy in the best possible way. So a 23-year-old commentator named Adam Mockler goes on a cable news panel, asks one simple question about what America has actually gained from this war, and the whole room turns on him. Scott Jennings snaps at him live on air. Then veteran broadcaster Geraldo Rivera goes on another network and roasts his attitude, admitting in the same breath that the kid was smart, prepared, and had his argument locked in. And now all three of them end up on Piers Morgan's show together, face to face, with Adam given a chance to answer for himself. Stay with me through the whole thing, because the moment Adam turns that 56-year career back around on Geraldo is worth every second of the wait. And while you're here, drop a comment and tell me what city or country you're tuning in from. I love seeing how far this stuff travels, and I actually read them. Okay, let's get into it.
We all know that Scott Jennings is more than happy to defend a war with a country that starts with the letters IRA that we are currently failing, that is going to put us trillions and trillions of dollars more in debt. I was only a few years old while you were in the administration defending prior endless wars. Now this war is failing.
8 weeks is endless to you?
Okay, you said it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks.
You have the attention span of a gnat?
Homie, I debated you on TV 4 to 6 weeks ago, and you said we were weeks away from it. Now you're making condescending remarks because you can't defend the fact that this war is not going your way. Wait, one more time.
Not going your way.
Name one political concession. Name one political concession.
Whoa,
Honestly, I'm not going to have this guy's in my face.
Everybody, hang tight,
Honestly.
okay? No, everybody calm down, okay?
Now, as somebody who was repeatedly actually manhandled by Russell Brand, I think your manhandling was at least a little bit removed. There was daylight between your arms and Scott Jennings. But what was interesting about the exchange to me was not that he was not entitled to get annoyed with the way you were gesticulating. I probably would have done too. But I've not seen him that rattled. Scott Jennings is normally ice cool on that panel show. I watch it a lot. I think he's a really interesting commentator for the right on CNN. It's an unusual beast. They don't have many of them. And he holds his own often against 3 or 4 people. And on this occasion, Geraldo was also on the panel, I noted. And we'll come to Geraldo for his view of it in a minute. But I haven't seen Scott Jennings react like that to anybody. And that, to me, in the same way that I'm seeing with Donald Trump's slightly erratic and, quite angry and testy social media activity in the last few weeks, it just looks to me like people that have gone all in on this war in Iran, now it's not playing out in any way that they predicted or told everybody that it was going to play out. They're getting testy. They're getting quite angry about it, which is a natural human reaction, but is increasingly obvious. And I thought your exchange with Scott was indicative of that. What did you think?
I don't want to take away from the point that I was making in the question that I was asking in that moment, because I have sat on panel after panel after panel with Scott Jennings as he lies about this war, not bound by any facts whatsoever, as he makes failed predictions, not bound by any timelines whatsoever, and as he condescends and trolls and provokes everyone else on the panel. I mean, even in the same panel, he made fun of my bedtime like 5 minutes earlier. So this is a man that's not bound by any facts or timelines or rules. So I said, I'm not going to be bound by rules that my opponent is not playing it. So you can say that I was gesticulating a bit too much. That's a fair criticism, but he could have politely asked me to tone it down. That is not what he did. He snapped because he realized he does not have an answer to the simple question, name one political concession we've gotten from Iran 60 days into this war. We've had moving, shifting timelines, shifting objectives for this war. They've been lowering the threshold for what victory is considered as. And just because I asked the question of, hey, what concessions have we gotten, that pisses him off. We've seen billions of dollars spent. We saw dozens of people, thousands of people in Iran have died, tens of thousands, but we saw over a dozen US soldiers die. So I'm going to continue to ask this very same question. What political concessions have we gotten from Iran 60 days into this war? The answer is absolutely none, and he knows the answer is none. That's why he freaked out.
watch how fast the panic sets in. The second somebody asks for one political concession, the whole pro-war position has nowhere left to stand, and you can feel it through the screen. Adam says this: "I debated you on TV 4 to 6 weeks ago, and you said we were weeks away from it. Now you're making condescending remark because you can't defend the fact that this war is not going your way." That is the entire ballgame. You have to understand what actually happened there. A prediction went out on national television with a number attached to it, 4 to 6 weeks. That number came, and it went, and nothing arrived with it. And the response to being reminded of it is not a correction, it's a joke about somebody's attention span. That is what people reach for when the scoreboard stops being their friend. And here's the part that should bother everybody. This pattern is old, and it is extremely well documented. Through the 60s, the American public was repeatedly told the fighting in Vietnam was nearly wrapped up. Officials gave optimistic assessments year after year, while the commitment quietly grew, and the casualty numbers grew with it. Nobody was ever made to answer for the earlier promise, because by the time it expired, the conversation had already moved on. That is the exact machine running again, and it works because the audience is expected to forget. Adam says this: "I was only a few years old while you were in the administration defending prior endless wars." That one lands because it isn't an insult, it's a receipt. Same voice, same confidence, same reassuring timeline, different decade. And notice who else clocks it. Piers Morgan, who is not exactly a peace activist, points this out. "It just looks to me like people have gone all in on this war in Iran. Now it's not playing out in any way that they predicted or told everybody it was going to play out." When the host on your side of the aisle is saying the plan didn't survive contact with reality, the argument is already over. Adam explains he snapped because he realized he does not have an answer to the simple question. Correct. Billions spent, an enormous civilian death toll, more than a dozen American service members gone, and the ask is simply, what did we get? Not what did we destroy? What did we win at the table? Silence is an answer.
Yeah, I think it's a perfectly
And don't
reasonable...
apologize.
No,
Don't apologize for your
I don't think you shouldn't be
gesturing.
apologising. No, I mean,
Yeah.
Let me bring Geraldo in firstly, because Geraldo, you were on the panel. I want to play your reaction on News Nation to what you saw on that panel.
The kid was a dick. I mean, he really smart, eloquent, had his argument together, had obviously debated Scott before, and he was really being a dick. I mean, it was shut up, go out and get some life experience.
How many different...
I wasn't sure if you were talking about Chris Cuomo there, actually, Geraldo. I had to clarify you were talking actually about Adam Mockler. Now,
You still think so?
well, Adam, I mean, what do you want to say to Geraldo? He called you a dick. Do you have a response?
Yeah, it's not a dick to try to force a critical question and try to force the conversation to where the American people want it. Geraldo, you were there when Scott made fun of my bedtime 5 minutes earlier. Again, this is somebody not bound by any rules whatsoever on this show. He's able to lie over and over. Why should I be bound by some decorum that my opponents aren't bound by? Do you see what I'm saying? It's not the 80s anymore. It's not even 2010 anymore. We are in a new era where we are playing in a reciprocal manner. So I'm not playing the games where I have to be nice. And regarding life experience, really quickly, you have a whole life of experience and you're on the same panels as me. We're on the same shows. We have a show last week. We have a show today. So life experience, what has it gotten you? I don't know.
All right, Geraldo, your life experience has got you nowhere, says the young dick.
Well, it's got me a career that's lasted 56 years so far and counting, and aside from 10 Emmys and a few other trinkets.
And now you're on the same panels
Adam, listen, don't be a wise ass, okay? I said to you in the commercial break that immediately followed your confrontation with Scott that I thought that you made some good points. The problem is that you can be very obnoxious in your presentation. Now, sometimes being obnoxious can lead to a whole career, but I advise you strongly, because you're a smart kid and you obviously prepared, for the debate. Stick to that. Stick to the substance, because I think that you do have a future. In terms of Scott Jennings, I like Scott very much. I didn't know him before the CNN experience. It was fun talking to him in the green room before the show, and then see the confrontation, this spontaneous combustion. I was surprised. I was surprised by the fact that Scott reacted as he did. But then, just listening to Adam, he can be very grating, and sometimes that works. I remember Morton Downey and a bunch of others from daytime TV and so forth. But I strongly advise you to stick to the substance, because you can, as I indicated in the commercial break, following the confrontation, you can be a voice for a generation that has so far been unable to penetrate into the mainstream media.
And now comes my favorite part, because the criticism accidentally becomes the compliment. Geraldo Rivera calls him a name, and then in the same breath, Geraldo admits he really smart, eloquent, had his argument together, had obviously debated Scott before. Read that again. The complaint is not that he was wrong. The complaint is not that his facts were bad. The complaint is that he was too effective while being right. That is a tone review, not a rebuttal. Nobody in that studio, not one person, steps up to actually answer the question about concessions. They critique the volume. Adam fires back. It's not being a jerk to try to force a critical question and try to force the conversation to where the American people want it. That is the whole fight in one sentence. Because the trick in modern cable television is that politeness gets weaponized. You get talked over, mocked, hit with a condescending line about your bedtime, and the moment you push back with the same energy, suddenly everybody discovers manners. Adam asks, why should I be bound by some decorum that my opponents aren't bound by? I want people to really sit with that, because it is the most honest description of the media environment anybody has given on air in a while. Decorum only works if it applies to both chairs. If one side gets to mock and mislead freely, while the other side is expected to smile and wait its turn, that isn't civility, that's a handicap. It's like being told to play a game where only one player has to follow the rulebook and then being lectured for noticing. Then the seniority card comes out and it gets dismantled in about 8 seconds. Adam says, we're on the same shows. We have a show last week, we have a show today. So life experience, what has it gotten in you? I don't know. Brutal and fair. Because the implied argument was, I have decades on you, therefore listen. But decades of experience do not automatically produce a correct answer about a war happening right now. If your experience were the trump card, you would use it to answer the question instead of grading someone's delivery.
Yeah, that's my.
This is so indicative of the double standards that we see all throughout the media. I mean, you went on that whole rant, but you didn't mention that Scott Jennings made fun of my bedtime or whatever. Not that I care, but he's the one who has an obnoxious air.
What did he say about your bedtime? I missed that.
So I asked him a question 5 minutes before. I said, hey, what concession has Iran gotten? And he says, aren't you a little bit up past your bedtime or something? He started with the condescending jabs.
I mean, to be fair, Adam, you are literally beaming into the show from your bedroom.
It's a hotel room. I'm currently at a hotel room. But, I mean, either way.
It's not the best way to refute the suggestion that it's past your bedtime.
What are you talking about? I'm in a hotel room in New York because I have CNN again tonight.
Adam, it's a joke. You're reacting You're reacting a bit like Scott did the other day. So take a chill pill. You happen to have a bed behind you as you're refuting the charge that it's past your bedtime. I'm just making a joke.
It's a good joke. One final thing. I'm 23. Maybe my youthful arrogance will drop with time, but there's no excuse for Scott Jennings to be on air all the time, making remarks at everybody else. And then the moment somebody gives it back, he can dish it, but he can't take it. The moment somebody tries to force the question, what political concession have we gotten from Iran? He gets worked up. So yeah.
Well, okay. I don't know Scott Jennings at all. I never met him. I think he's a very effective communicator on a network, CNN, that when I was there was very, very, very cautious about revealing any kind of partisan bias, but now has a panel show where quite often on that show they have 4 on one side and Scott Jennings. So I actually feel like he puts up a pretty good fight, given he's often heavily outnumbered. But Anna, on a sort of slightly wider point here, it's very interesting to me. I just interviewed Megyn Kelly for 20 minutes at the start of this show. And I could have been talking to you about some of these issues, right? Same with Tucker Carlson. A lot of you have blended now into a weird family of people who have a lot of agreement about a lot of things. Iran, the influence of Israel, Donald Trump and his mistake as you see it, and so on.
And here's the receipt that ends the entire conversation. Adam points out, I asked him a question 5 minutes before I said, hey, what concession has Iran got? And he says, aren't you a little bit up past your bedtime or something? He started with the condescending jabs first, 5 minutes earlier. So the whole lecture about presentation, the whole speech about substance, somehow skipped the part where the mockery started from the other chair. That is the double standard in its purest form. One man makes a personal jab at a colleague's age, and it's called good television. The other man raises his voice voice while asking about a war, and suddenly we need a seminar on decorum. Adam says this: the moment somebody gives it back, he can dish it, but he can't take it. This is what blows my mind about the whole exchange. Everybody in that studio treated the outburst as a personality problem. It was not. It was a coverage problem. When you have no answer, the smartest available move is to make the other person the story. And it worked, because we spent the next several minutes discussing hand gestures instead of foreign policy. And look, the host does step in to defend him, saying he puts up a pretty good fight given he's often heavily outnumbered. I actually get that instinct. Being the lone voice on a panel is genuinely hard, and I respect anybody who does it. But being outnumbered is not a defense against a factual question. Nobody in that room ganged up on him. One person asked what we won. That's it. If 4 people asking a fair question feels like an ambush, the problem is not the number of chairs, it's that the position cannot survive one follow-up. And this is why I keep coming back to the same point. A 23-year-old asking what the endgame is should not be the most disruptive thing that happens on a news panel. That should be the baseline. Every war sold to the public comes with a timeline, and when the timeline dies quietly, somebody has to say it out loud. The people who ask early always get called obnoxious. They also usually get called correct about 5 years later. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.